What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Been forever and a day since I did a video, so we're gonna try to get back into this thing. So what you're looking at on the bench is a SCX10, and this is gonna be a budget build kind of issue. So a little backstory on this truck. A buddy of mine from work picked this thing up. I would probably say 6-7 years ago. Want to get into the crawling just to kind of see if it was something he'd be interested in doing. Drove it a couple times and then let it park. Crawling wasn't for him, so he kind of put it in storage and set it down and just never really got back into it. So he reached out and he said, "Hey, how much you think I can get out of this thing?" Sent me a couple pictures. It's got some decent stuff. It's got a few goodies on it. I told him, we'll bring it by, and I'll kind of give it a once over and kind of see where it's at. It's got decent parts on it for 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago. So I'm gonna kind of go through it, and I'm gonna show you what's on it. Well, it was on it. I already started working on it, kind of ripping it apart. Got kind of excited. Thought this would be a great video for a budget build, or an intro to crawling kind of build, something that's fairly inexpensive. So I think when I'm done with this thing, it'll be great for a young toddler, a 5, 6, 7, 8 year old. It's going to be slow. It's going to be it's going to be pretty robust. There's some few things that the buyer will have to do to it to make it a little bit longevity wise, or last to a little bit of kid bashing. But I mean, heck, it's going to be completely ready to run. It's going to have a charger, a brand new charger, and it's going to have two 5200, I believe they are, 2S. So it's not going to be fast. But let's dig into it. It's got some decent parts to it, so let's check it out. First of all, this is a Proline, a discontinued Proline Ram or Dodge body. They don't make this one anymore, but that's kind of cool. It kind of fits. Put that one to the side. So it was basically all together. It had a bunch of this stuff in it already. Like I said, I've already started working on it. But it came with, it's going to have a Tactic remote. It came with, your Tekin FXR with the BEC. It came with that. It's got a Tekin 40-turn motor. Has MIP drive lines, so the good metal drive lines. It had some mismatched shocks front to rear, so I had a set of these in my parts bin. And so basically that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through my parts bins and kind of throw some better stuff at it to kind of make it reliable and easier to work on with maybe a little bit modern stuff. So it's got a cool Scalar Fab Pro, I think they call it Scalar Fab Pro bumper. It's a metal bumper. It's a great bumper. It's good and solid. It's got these metal sliders that bolt onto the stock tray. I'm not sure the company made those, but I've seen them before. So that's pretty cool. When I got it, it had a set of Wraith links on it. So, the guy that built this truck before actually did a pretty decent job for back in the day. But we can make it a little bit better. So these ones, you can orient the Wraith links to actually kind of give this thing a lift. And these shocks, I believe, are like 100 mil, 105 mil. Not the most optimal, but this would be a great trail truck. It's not really a comp truck, but it'd be a great trail truck for a kid. Anyways, so I swapped out these shocks. I had these stock shock mounts, front and rear, from an SCX-10-1. But they had them on backwards. So if you can see, the kind of angled here. These ones are straight to go on the straight rail. He had these ones in the back. And a lot of times people will switch them front and back to move the shock where you want to move it. But I just didn't like them. They're still too flimsy. So I had a pair of these, I believe they're from a 10-2 upper shock mounts. Had the panhard on it. I just nipped the panhard off because it is a servo on axle. And it is a high-tech. So it's an older high-tech, but it's a good high-tech. It's got these aluminum axles, front and rear. I think they're just, Amazon specials. Aluminum C-hub. Unfortunately, they still have the dog bone axle shafts in them, no universals. And the steering setup it had on it was the old school, from the servo down to the tie rod, this little joint thing. And if you can tell, it's pretty sloppy. So what I did is I took the Wraith links off and put a set of, I had a couple sets of Amazon links that I picked up. They're just cheap on Amazon. They're like 16, 17 bucks. Word of advice, if you buy them, just get Traxxas rod ends. The rod ends that came with it, they are just really a pile of garbage, if you know what I'm saying. These are horrible. They just don't fit. So just get some good rod ends, because it's a wear item. It's going to break. Now, unfortunately, I still have the stock ones from these links here. I may end up changing those out. We'll see what happens. I'll probably end up doing that. What else did I take off it? So the Tekin FXR speed control. They're great speed controls. They're super tiny. The problem is when you want to start running, 3S or other stuff, you have to run a BEC to them so it doesn't brown stuff out, I guess. I'm not 100% certain on all things Tekin. My son's more into that himself. But a great option to this is going to be what I'm going to put into it. And it's again, out of the parts bin, it's a used Hobbywing 1080. Man, you can't go wrong with these things. They're fully waterproof. It's solid. You can run up to 3S on them, no issues. And it doesn't really matter turn-wise on motor. So I think this will work great on that. All right. What else? So the old school, if you guys know anything about old school STX 10-1s, they had a battery tray like right here. And that's not going to cut it. That's not going to work. So we're going to end up relocating it. Let's see. What else did I do so far? So I got the links. As far as the dog bones go, we're going to get rid of those. So I reached in my stash of parts and I found some front shafts. Now, I really think these are off the short side off of Axial AAR60 axle housings. So I'm going to see if they are the correct length from here to the end.
Right. It looks like that didn't work out like I thought it was going to. So here's the original dog bone setup from the 10-1 axle that come out of there. So if we lay them up, very end of tang at the end, and see where the bearing rides, the universals are just a little bit shorter. So the AR60 short side is not compatible with an Axial SCX 10-1. And now we both know. Yeah, kind of shoots that plane in the foot. But so you can buy universals. Universals, not for the 10-1. They're called CVDs or VVDs. If you can find them, I think I want to say they're between decent one like 40 bucks, 50 bucks, somewhere around in there. So I'll just have to let the potential buyer know and let them know the options. Still, I think it's going to be a great starter truck. All right, so the next order of business, I'm going to get this put back together and then probably work on cross braces, stiffen up this chassis a little bit because it's like a wet noodle. All right, I'm going to do that. I'll get back to you. All right, body's mounted. I had to pop a couple new holes in here. As you can see, those other holes didn't quite line up. Back ones are in. Had to use some really long ones for the front. That's all right. So I got the cross bracing in. Just used some of my little bits and pieces out of spare links and spare parts box. Just happened to be the exact length. Took out the plastic one, so it stiffened the chassis up a little bit. Not perfect, but it's better than the plastic cross bracing. So after that, I decided I wanted to mount one of the batteries I was going to go with it, and the batteries I had were hard case 6200 milliamp 2S batteries. The only place I could even fathom having a battery that size was going to be, you know, bolt some brackets onto the frame. As you can see, I drilled some holes. Don't be afraid if you're modifying stuff, just to go ahead and, you know, make do with what you got. But I tried it, right? And because of how high the servo sits at full compression, I had to put the battery way up there, which, I mean, it's above the shock towers, and it's just going to be too big. The 6200s are going to be way too big for this truck. I know it's a starter trail truck, but man, just try not to put your battery up so high. Forward was good. You know, I could get it way forward, but it would just be super incapable and be very frustrating for the person driving it. So my advice to everybody getting into this is don't buy the big 5,000 milliamp battery packs. You know, go like 2200s. You know, little guys like this, they're cheap. The best thing about it is, you know, yeah, you can get some of the bigger batteries. The downfall is they're big and they're heavy and they hurt your performance on your rig. Trail truck, comp truck, whatever, crawling. The more weight you have on these things, the worse it's going to perform, and it's going to be frustrating. Besides that, the big 5200s cost nearly twice as much as two of these guys. So if you happen to forget to leave your truck plugged in with the 6200 and it has a draw on it and it takes your battery down to 0 voltage, well, guess what? Now you're out that money for that whole entire battery. And if it's your only battery, now you can't crawl until you save up money or buy another battery. So if you buy two 2200s, if something goes wrong with one battery, like you get a bad battery or you leave it plugged in, you still have one you can go play with until you save up money to buy a second one. So that's my best advice for budget stuff is smaller batteries, trail truck, comp truck, whatever. Smaller batteries, they're cheaper and it'll keep you crawling. All right, so I went away from the big 6200 sticking up here, and I had this 2200 2S sitting in my bench or in my box. I just don't use it. I don't use 2S. I use 3 and 4. But this is light enough. We're just going to stick it right there. I'm going to slot a couple holes in the slider for Velcro straps to keep it down. And it'll also allow the purchaser, the new buyer, the guy driving it, to start out on 2S. And if they want to keep it slow, keep it on 2S. But with this motor, the Hobbywing 1080, the 1080 can go up to 3S. So you can get smaller, similar size batteries around the 2000 milliamp range in 3S when you're ready to go a little bit faster, have a little bit more power. I'm also going to put a BEC in it and to get more voltage to the servo to make it steer better. So the more voltage you have here should also help out with the steering. Definitely help out with more speed and power. So that's my tip. So the next step is I'm going to get some holes slotted here. I noticed checking the pinion mesh on this guy. I noticed there's a couple, you can't see it because of the stinking camera, but there's a couple little flat spots in the spur, like maybe got stuff stuck between the pinion and the spur, and it just started wiping out those teeth. But here's a big one right there. You really can't tell. Nope, can't tell. Anyway, so I'm going to replace this. I have, again, in my spare box. It's used, but all the teeth are good. So we're going to put that on there. Same time, I'm going to take these MIP drive lines. Because it sat for so long, it just, condensation and build. They're got a lot of surface rust. So I'm going to clean those up, stick those back together, slot a couple holes, and then we're going to start putting the ESC, BEC, receiver, get her all buttoned up. And what else we got to do to it? We got to change out these hex hubs. See these hex hubs? They got a little nipple on the end of them. So that nipple is made to go through that hub bore right here, right? And then the nut goes on the outside and it sandwiches this face to that face. Well, don't use this kind of hub if it does not fit through the center. You can see these rims. I know the rims need to be replaced anyways, but they're kind of trashed, like really trashed. So I'm gonna swap those hex hubs out for one that does not have a nipple on it, so you get better contact on the rim and hopefully make the rim last a little bit longer until they need to be replaced, which honestly probably won't be too long. All right, there it is. It's all together. Got everything buttoned up the way I wanted to get buttoned up. Did a quick wipe down of the body. Put a rear bumper on it. Got the hex hubs changed. I got all the wiring done. Actually, it's not a bad looking truck. I already test drove it on the floor here real quick, and it's not too terribly slow. It's not too terribly fast. I think it's going to work out nicely. The body doesn't quite sit centered to the chassis. You can see the little rear bumper, but I think it'll be all right. So let's take the top off. So there's my Velcro straps with the slots for the 2200. I got all the wiring buttoned up. I got the steering all fixed up. If you remember right, I told you originally the steering, this was the steering setup, you know, knuckle, and servo. One reason why they did this is when you go servo on axle, under full compression, that rod from the servo hits the frame. You can see it still hits the frame a little bit, but I had a longer rod, put a little bend in it to clearance it to give it the most up travel. It still hits a little bit, but again, it'll be okay for the nature of this truck. There's the Hobbywing 1080, power button, BEC. They all got double back servo sticky tape. Same with that. Stick it in place. The other thing I forgot to mention, it does have an aftermarket motor mount in it. Pretty beefy. Looks good. Underneath, you can see I got the MIPs cleaned up. A little fresh coat of Rust-Oleum. Of course, they didn't want to get any paint on the ends inside the bells because then it'll just gum everything up. So I just left that. Those will probably surface rust over time, but again, trail truck. Be good to go. So there it is. If you are in the market for a budget build, this is a fine example. You know, you can get into the hobby fairly inexpensive. You don't have to break the budget, find out, you know, that crawling's really not for you. You can experience the joys that a lot of us have by running around on the trail, pulling trigger, having a good time out with your buddies, you know, just getting outside. I know the winter time's here, or even if you want to get your kids into it. I mean, this is it's a great budget truck. So don't be afraid to, you know, if you have experience wrenching on stuff, you know, get advice from your local RC guys, and just get multiple people's Don't be afraid to ask around your local RC community on people's advice on, you know, how to build a truck. But get multiple perspectives. One guy's way is not always the best. Same with mine. I'm sure there's a lot better and cheaper ways to do it. But a situation like this and the previous green truck I built a couple years back, you know, I guess what I'm trying to say is take everybody's information with a little grain of salt and get multiple. And if you find the same advice multiple ways, multiple times, that's probably a good way to do it. Otherwise, it's a trial and error too, right? So anyways, I'm doing enough blabbing. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm still rusty making videos. But I hope you guys enjoyed this little budget-ish kind of build. It's going up for sale, and I'll hopefully get the most money out of it for my friend, who, again, tried getting into it, thought about it, didn't really dig it so much. So, yeah. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and just to let you know that, you can get into this for fairly cheap and have fun and get your kids into it. So you have an excuse. Tell the wife, hey, we're going out crawling. The boys really want to crawl, because we all know that this is just as much fun for adults as it is for kids. Hey, thanks again for watching.